Nearly 40% of engine failures trace back to overheating, and the fix can drain anywhere from $500 to over $7,000 from your wallet. In this video, you'll learn the smartest ways to keep your cooling system bulletproof. Stay tuned until the end for one clever DIY test that could spare you from ever buying another radiator. We're kicking off with a 2-minute test that could stop a $1,000 breakdown before it starts. Number 15, check coolant for voltage. A lot of cooling system failures start long before you see a leak. If stray electricity is flowing through your coolant, it can eat tiny holes in radiators, heater cores, even hoses, sometimes in just weeks. It works like a weak battery, moving metal from one spot to another until something gives out. Testing takes 2 minutes. With the engine warm, put the black lead of a digital meter on the battery's negative post and dip the red lead into the coolant without touching metal. A healthy system shows around 0.0 to 0.2 volts. At 0.3 to 0.4 volts, you've got a problem. Switch to AC voltage 2. Any reading over 0.4 means the alternator may be leaking AC into the system. The fix is simple. Clean and tighten ground straps, run high-draw accessories straight to battery negative, and replace old or corroded grounds. If AC voltage is high, repair or replace the alternator. Finally, flush old coolant and refill with the right mix and distilled water to keep conductivity low. Catching stray voltage early can save you from a $1,500 heater core job or a $1,400 radiator replacement. It's quick, easy, and one of the smartest checks you can add to your regular maintenance. Number 14, test for combustion leaks. A small head gasket leak can wreck a cooling system long before you see smoke or milky oil. It lets exhaust gases sneak into the coolant, creating bubbles that block flow, eat away at metal, and push pressure past what hoses and radiators can handle. That's why pros swear by a quick combustion leak test. The tool is simple: a clear chamber and a blue liquid. You draw vapor from the radiator neck or pressurized expansion tank through it. If combustion gases are present, the liquid turns yellow for gas engines or yellow-green for diesels. That color change is your early warning that cylinder pressure is leaking where it shouldn't. Do the test with the engine warm so coolant is circulating. Always pull vapor, not liquid, to avoid false readings. If the result is positive, repair should be a priority. Every drive with gas in the coolant is speeding up corrosion and damaging parts. The test costs about $35 to $45, takes 5 minutes, and can save you thousands on head gasket jobs, radiators, or heater cores. It's like catching a roof leak before the ceiling collapses. Small effort now to avoid a big, messy bill later. But even the best early warning won't help if the danger strikes faster than you can see it coming. The next one fixes that. Number 13. Fit a low coolant alarm. A burst hose or cracked plastic fitting can drain your coolant in seconds. The trouble is, your temperature gauge might still sit in the middle while metal parts are flash boiling. That's because most cars read heat from a sensor in the coolant itself. Once the sensor is dry, it can't warn you. Some gauges are even designed to stay steady over a wide range to keep drivers calm, which means you might not see danger until it's too late. A low coolant alarm works differently. It's like a tripwire at the source, sitting in the tank or radiator and sounding off the moment the level drops. That early shout can be the difference between topping off a $10 jug of coolant and replacing a $4,000 to $10,000 engine. Many European cars have these from the factory. After major overheating recalls, Ford even retrofitted them to some models. Aftermarket kits cost about $100 to $300, and good ones use delay circuits so they don't false alarm on bumps. Installation is simple. Mount the sensor at the correct level, run the wire to a buzzer or light you'll notice, and leave the rest to it. Once it's in place, you'll have the same kind of early warning safeguard heavy trucks rely on to avoid catastrophic breakdowns. Number 12. Swap weak plastic fittings. One of the fastest ways to kill a healthy engine is a brittle plastic cooling part letting go without warning. A cracked thermostat housing or radiator neck can dump all your coolant in seconds. At highway speed, that's often game over for the head gasket. Most of these parts are made from nylon. Years of hot coolant and pressure slowly make it brittle. Hose barbs shrink, clamps loosen, and one pressure spike can snap it clean off. BMW, VW, Ford, plenty of brands have known repeat offenders. The smart fix is simple. Replace those weak plastic fittings with quality aluminum ones before they fail. Aluminum doesn't soak up coolant, doesn't creep under clamp pressure, and holds its shape through thousands of heat cycles. When you do this upgrade, use constant tension clamps so the seal stays tight as parts expand and contract. And if you want the part to last decades, check your grounds. Stray electrical current in coolant can eat metal from the inside out. This one change turns a $30 fuse into a permanent fixture. Instead of risking a $2,000 to $6,000 engine repair, you get a cooling system that shrugs off pressure spikes and just keeps working. Before we move on, subscribe and stick around. We're all about simple fixes that keep your car healthy, safe, and out of the shop. That's knowledge worth having on tap. Number 11. Replace water pump early. The water pump is the quiet workhorse of your cooling system, moving every drop of coolant your engine relies on. When it starts to fail, things can unravel fast. Overheating, warped heads, even snapped timing belts on engines where the pump is belt-driven. That's why pros replace it before it fails, especially during a timing belt job. On many cars, the pump sits right behind the belt, so almost all the labor to get there is already done. Spending a bit more at that point saves tearing the engine apart again later, or worse, paying for a $2,500 to $3,000 head gasket repair if overheating takes hold. What kills pumps? Seal leaks that let coolant wash away bearing grease, misaligned pulleys or worn fan clutches overloading the shaft, contaminated or wrong type coolant eating away at seals. Even a weak radiator cap can cause cavitation, tiny vapor bubbles that pit the impeller like sandblasting. When replacing the pump, do the job as a set. New thermostat, cap, belt, tensioners, and proper coolant. If your car has an electric pump, treat it as an interval item. Many fail around 60,000 to 80,000 miles. Handle it proactively and you'll keep coolant flowing smoothly, temperatures stable, and your engine far away from the kind of damage that ends road trips early. Number 10. Replace belt and tensioner together. A slipping belt doesn't just make an embarrassing squeal, it quietly slows your water pump, drops alternator output, and can tip your cooling system into overheating. Modern EPDM belts almost never crack like the old ones, so they can look fine while losing grip mile by mile. By the time you hear a noise, your cooling flow may already be struggling. The tensioner is just as critical. It keeps the belt tight and dampens vibration so it can grip the pulleys. Over time, the spring weakens and the pivot wears, letting the belt flutter. That underspins the pump and in hot traffic even slows your electric cooling fans by cutting alternator speed. In heavy rain, worn ribs can hydroplane on water and slip completely. Replacing the belt alone often leaves an old tensioner ready to fail. Pros treat them as a set, swap both around 90,000 miles, or sooner if you see the tensioner pointer near its wear limit, the arm shaking at idle, or any glazing on the belt ribs. Done on schedule, it's a few $100s. Wait until it slips or snaps, and you could be facing a $1,000 water pump job, a tow bill, or worse, serious engine damage. It's quiet, cheap insurance that keeps coolant flowing and your engine safe. Of course, moving coolant is only half the battle. The next tip makes sure it can actually get where it needs to go. Number 9. Backflush the heater core. Think of your heater core as a miniature radiator with the tightest passages in the whole cooling system. Those narrow channels grab heat fast, and they're also the first place debris gets stuck. Rust flakes, scale from hard water, mixed coolant gel, even stop leak residue can collect here long before your radiator clogs. When that happens, cabin heat weakens, but the real trouble is hidden. Many cars keep coolant flowing through the heater core year-round, even with the heat off. A clogged core raises restriction in the system, making the water pump work harder and slowing warm-up. In a pinch, a clean core can even help cool an overheating engine if you crank the heat. Backflushing works because it pushes water in reverse, breaking up deposits that forward flow has compacted. Done right, low pressure, alternating directions. It's gentle, but effective. Some factory bulletins, like Honda's, even recommend a chemical soak followed by 30 gallons of rinse water for partial blockages. Replacing a heater core can run $500 to $1,500 in labor alone, thanks to all the dash work. A professional flush might cost a fraction of that. Do it every few years, especially after contamination, and you'll keep coolant flowing freely, protect the pump and thermostat, and dodge one of the most expensive small part repairs in your car. Number 8. Keep shroud and ducts intact. That big plastic fan shroud and the odd foam seals around your radiator aren't decoration. They're the reason your cooling fan can actually do its job. Without them, air takes the easy way around the radiator instead of through it, leaving corners of the core lazy and reducing cooling by as much as 40% at idle. Think of it like a vacuum cleaner with the nozzle off. Same motor, far less suction. The shroud spreads the fan's pull across the whole radiator, stops hot air from recirculating back into the front, and keeps your AC working better in traffic. Even the small lower air dam under the bumper matters. It builds the pressure difference that pushes air through at highway speeds. Tests show a 26 by 18 inch radiator offers about 468 square inches of cooling surface. A 16-inch fan without a shroud only draws from around 200 of those. That's paying for a big radiator and using less than half of it. Replacing missing shrouds, lower deflectors, or foam seals is cheap, often under a couple $100. Skip them and you risk overheating, cooked AC compressors, or even a head gasket job that runs into the thousands. Keep the shroud and ducts intact and you'll get full cooling power from the parts you already have. But even perfect airflow won't help if the inside of your cooling system is clogged like an old coffee pot. The next one clears that out completely. Number 7. Do a chemical flush. A basic drain and fill is like rinsing a coffee pot. You dump the liquid, but the brown ring stays. That ring in your cooling system is rust and mineral scale, and it's quietly killing your heat transfer. Just 1/16 inch of scale can cut cooling efficiency by 40%, which is enough to push a healthy engine into the danger zone on a hot climb or in traffic. The fix is a proper chemical or chelating flush. These cleaners use safe compounds like citric acid, or EDTA, to grab iron and calcium at the molecular level and dissolve them into the rinse water. It's not about pressure, it's chemistry. That means clogged heater cores can suddenly flow again, radiators regain lost capacity, and your water pump seals stop being sandblasted by microscopic grit. Pro shops and even OEMs have used this for decades. BMW and Mercedes have factory citric acid procedures. It's a few hours of work that can save you from $1,300 heater core replacements, $1,000 radiators, or a $3,000 head gasket job. Think of it as hitting the reset button on your cooling system's lifespan. Clean metal, restored flow, and fresh coolant chemistry mean your engine runs cooler, your AC works better, and you're far less likely to end up on the shoulder with steam under the hood. Number 6. Check the radiator cap. That little cap on your radiator or coolant bottle isn't just a lid, it's the pressure valve that decides how your entire cooling system behaves. A strong sealing cap works like a pressure cooker, letting a 50-50 coolant mix handle up to about 265 degrees before it boils. A weak cap can drop that by 40 degrees, which is all it takes for normal heat to turn into steam pockets that cook metal. Inside, there are 2 tiny valves. One holds pressure, so coolant stays liquid even on the hottest hill climbs. The other opens as the engine cools, pulling fluid back in so hoses don't collapse like a straw. If either sticks, you'll see slow overheating, mystery coolant loss, or hoses sucked flat on cold mornings. Testing is quick. Shops use a simple gauge to check if the cap holds its rated pressure, often 13 to 18 psi. If it's weak, dirty, swollen, or the wrong fit, replace it with the exact OEM spec. For the cost of lunch, you buy back a big safety margin against overheating, pump damage, and cracked parts. Skip it, and you're gambling with a $3,000 head gasket job over a part most people never think about. That little cap may control the pressure, but the next piece calls the shots on when the coolant actually moves. Number 5. Replace thermostat every 5 years. A thermostat isn't just a gate for coolant, It's the conductor of your engine's temperature. When it drifts even a little from spec, the whole cooling system plays out of tune. Over time, the wax motor inside gets sluggish, springs weaken, and seals harden. That can mean it opens too late, not enough, or stays open when it shouldn't. A lazy thermostat might never trigger an overheat, but it can quietly cost you fuel, wear out cylinders faster, and leave acidic condensation in your oil. Cold-running engines burn richer, strip oil from the walls, and take forever to warm the cabin in winter. On the other end, a stuck-closed thermostat can boil the coolant, warp heads, and hand you a repair bill in the thousands. Pro mechanics often replace the thermostat every other coolant service, about 4 to 5 years, or anytime they're already in the front of the engine for a water pump or timing belt. It's cheap insurance, especially since replace thermostat ranks among the top 10 check engine light repairs. Go with the exact factory temperature rating, install it in the correct orientation, and bleed the air out properly. Do that, and you'll keep your cooling system and everything it protects working at its best for years. But perfect temperature control won't matter if the container holding it all together decides to split without warning. Number 4. Replace aging plastic tanks. A hairline crack in a plastic radiator tank or coolant bottle can turn a good engine into scrap in minutes. Lose pressure, the coolant boils sooner, air pockets form, and hot spots warp heads. Most tanks are made from glass fiber nylon. They handle heat and pressure for years, but by 10 to 12 years old, the plastic gets brittle. The first sign is often chalky whitening around hose connections or a faint sweet smell after parking. The next sign could be steam on the roadside. These parts are under pressure every drive, about 15 psi. That's enough to raise boiling point by roughly 45 degrees, but also enough to split weakened plastic during a hard pull or after shutdown heat soak. The fix is simple. Replace the radiator or end tanks, plus the coolant bottle, cap, and hoses before they fail. Use quality parts and constant tension clamps so the seal stays tight. If your radiator also cools the transmission, replace it early or add a separate cooler. Some owners have saved thousands avoiding cross-contamination disasters. Do this on your schedule, not the highways. A planned $300 to $600 refresh is far cheaper than a $2,000 to $6,000 engine or transmission repair, and it quietly resets the life of your whole cooling system. We're down to the final 3, and yes, the last one's a DIY trick that could save you thousands. But before that, let's look at the hidden killer most owners never even think about. Number 3. Bleed air pockets properly. Trapped air is one of the most overlooked killers of a cooling system. Even a small bubble in the wrong spot can make the heater blow cold, cause random gauge spikes, or overheat the engine in traffic. That's because air doesn't carry heat like coolant does, so wherever a pocket forms, metal runs hotter and sensors get fooled. It's not just about temperature swings. Air can also trigger cavitation at the water pump, a violent churning that pits the impeller and wears seals. Over time, oxygen in those bubbles accelerates rust inside the system, sending debris into the radiator and heater core. This is why pro mechanics treat bleeding as a must-do step after any coolant work. The best method is vacuum filling, pulling the system under 20 to 25 inches of vacuum, then letting coolant get sucked in everywhere at once. On modern engines with low-mounted radiators, remote tanks, or electric pumps, it's the only way to ensure every loop is bubble-free. If you're doing it yourself, open the heater circuit, use the thermostat's bleed feature, and recheck the level the next morning. Done right, you'll prevent hot spots, keep sensors accurate, and add years to your pump, thermostat, and radiator just by making sure nothing but liquid runs through your cooling system. Number 2. Refresh after any overheat. One bad overheat can quietly damage parts you'd never suspect. Thermostats, radiator caps, hoses, even the coolant itself. The car might seem fine after cooling down, but the clock is ticking. When coolant boils, pressure spikes, rubber seals harden, and springs lose tension. A thermostat can stick or open late. A radiator cap can vent too soon or fail to pull coolant back from the bottle. Hoses may feel soft or develop blisters inside. An overheated coolant? Its additives break down, pH shifts, and deposits can form, narrowing passages like plaque in an artery. That's why experienced mechanics don't just fix the leak and send you home. They swap the cap, thermostat, and any suspect hoses, then flush and refill with the correct coolant. It's cheap insurance, about $50 to $200 in parts, compared to thousands for a blown head gasket. Even small details matter. Clock a thermostat's bleed hole at 12 o'clock so air escapes. Use the factory-rated cap. Too high a rating can burst old plastic tanks. And if your system is tricky to bleed, a vacuum-filled tool makes sure no air pockets hide and cause hot spots later. Treat an overheat like smoke damage. Replace the quiet casualties now, and your cooling system will stay strong for years instead of failing all over again. Number 1. Scan radiator for cold spots. A radiator can look fine from the outside and still be losing its cooling muscle. The quickest way to catch it in the act is with a simple infrared thermometer. After a good run, either highway speed or a steady idle with the fan on, aim the beam across the core in slow sweeps. You're looking for smooth, even heat from one side to the other. If you spot cool patches, those tubes aren't pulling their weight. Deposits, scale, or sealer fallout can choke off flow, leaving dead zones that barely see any hot coolant. Sometimes the cause is on the air side, bug mats, mud, or bent fins in the stack ahead of the radiator. Either way, those cold spots mean less surface area working to shed heat. Catch them early, and you're avoiding more than just overheating. A healthy, fully active core keeps engine oil stable, prevents extra strain on fans and belts, and helps transmission coolers built into the tank do their job. Mark problem areas, clear any debris you can reach, and be ready to replace the core if internal restriction is to blame. Do this once or twice a year, and you'll spot hidden cooling losses long before they show up on the dash gauge or in your repair bill. Now that your cooling system's safe, your next win is under the fuel door. Our next video shows the gas cap trick that can make your engine feel brand new. Watch now.